at the beginning someone asked, I wonder why the homosexual comes here. I have in my mind, because the case I tell you that the main cause, but we can list 10 different causes. The main cause is because Brazilian society still didn't embrace them properly. Even they tolerate, but they don't feel comfortable. You have to be comfortable, not just accepted. It's not enough being accepted. It should be, oh, poor boy, he's homosexual, let's be nice to him. It's not enough. Should it be really integrated?
London was a gender-inclusive haven, and that provided what nearly a century ago a major British writer who moved away from normative heterosexuality with Virginia Woolf. She said what she would call the preconditions for sexual expression. Once you have your sexual expression, your creative expression will come, which is exactly what Nathan describes in his poetry very beautifully. I've got parts of it if you'd like to see later. And what he says very clearly, it's the freedom of breathing and of presenting his own sexuality here. He had never written before. He was an actor before. But as he came here and he could breathe, he could acknowledge his own sexual identity away from the family constrictions in Brazil. Poetry came naturally, and he writes beautifully, absolutely beautiful. His first writings are like letters of confession to the father, and very beautiful writing. And the father never replies. In Lacanian terms, you could say that he denies the name of the father with the no of the father. The father never replies, but it's a difficult trajectory. Creative expression comes. They find London a place that has enabled their growth in every sense. However, it seems that they lack in cultural capital. They do not have access to other cultural expressions here where they could integrate with other writers here, people who are as competent as they are. So in this case, it's a small gap, but it's one that is perhaps there, one that perhaps you could elaborate on. How those people who have great potential, etc., how can they contribute to this? This is just framing it a little in such a way that if we could possibly address both where we have channels for creativity, for enhancement, that with a little bit of a push, they could go farther. But also, we cannot deny that there are major problems and major difficulties as well.
Now, London is a very expensive place, and so is any developed country. And I imagine that immigrants going to live there, trying to save money to send back home, they will have to work very hard. So, I think that we have to take that into consideration. Because even my English friends, they also have 2 jobs, or the ones that opt not to, is they know that they will have to save more, or they don't travel as much as we do, or they don't have as a flamboyant life as that work double to have that kind of money. So I'm just thinking, if immigrants are here, like I am an immigrant, but if they cannot speak the language, they don't know the society as a whole, they are not integrated yet, they sometimes they are overstayers. It's going to be much harder. But yet they have to work that. So they will do the worst jobs that no one wants to do. But that's almost is like a situation that they have to go through in a way if they want to get the level of money that they came to get. You see what I mean? So I think that victimizing them per se, I don't know if we're going to get anywhere with that.
There is a tendency in Brazil to describe as passive active. That's part of the terminology used in Brazil.
Yeah.
It's a terminological issue that might reflect a cultural one, and which has bearings as they come here.
Right.
You mentioned it briefly, but I
Yeah.
found a very interesting topic.
It is something that I have an interest for a future study, future research. It's nothing to do with sexual health, per se, but it's an area that in Brazil and in cultures, especially Catholic countries, where the homosexual is considered the passive one, so the active one is not considered gay. And because of that, I believe that it gives a lot of scope for people to feel free to have homosexual encounters, because they don't get the blame or the guilt of being gay. So that is an area that I have interest. And because of that, people are, because they are open to these encounters, I think that they are also open for more risk-taking in terms of sexual health. And it's an area of interest for future research, as I said.
Yeah, there is more risk there, yeah.
We've been counting a lot of sex workers. We don't use the term prostitution in English anymore. So a lot of sex workers that come here to study English and end up going to prostitution and end up getting an infection. So how do they deal with that? What can we do to help in terms of prevention so these people are not easily infected? Or because this is a reality that will not go away. We cannot fight sex work, but we can maybe assist in a way that these people can have some kind of prevention. So all are issues that I think that we should be looking into as a group and try to implement some kind of
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm not Brazilian, so I will speak in English if that's okay, but please tell me if I'm speaking too fast. I work with Christian Aid, which some of you may be familiar with, others not. Christian Aid is a UK international development agency that was set up by over 30 Protestant churches in the UK just after the war. I think coincidentally, I don't think it had anything to do with the army commander that was mentioned earlier. but it may have done. And the organisation now works in over 40 countries around the world. And HIV is one of the focus areas, but it's not exclusively an HIV organisation. We work in all sorts of different social themes, economic justice, developing sustainable livelihoods, and more recently the issue of climate change. I work in the HIV team at Christian Aid, and my job is this tricky issue that was raised earlier, and it's precisely this dialogue between faith and the issue of HIV in my case, but also the relevant issues of sexuality, of diversity and so on, which are often very difficult to address.